Yeah, those two guys are glass eaters. You guys didn't see them eating glass earlier?
They like the
Yeah,
medium rare, we're told.
yeah. Any way they want it, they can have it. It's they're the type of guys we're looking for. We're excited to have them, no doubt.
What stood out the most about both guys when you were watching them? I'm sure you watched them at the combine when we talked to you last. But what
Right,
stood out the most on film?
right. Their physical play, and then being in a heavy drop back system for both those guys, and the production that they showed on tape, and those are the things that jumped out at me on tape for sure.
What does leadership along the offensive line mean to you, Frank? These two guys.
Yeah, it's really the old line. I like to reference them as the silent leaders on the team. They're the guys that always lead by example. Every now and then you have a special guy that might rise to be more of a vocal leader, But at line one, the old line's got to be the silent leader. The way they work on a day and daily basis, how they prepare themselves, how they conduct themselves, how are they on game day, whether the ebbs and flows of the game, how are they maintaining themselves, and how are they going about their business. So it's all about what you can see as opposed to what you can hear that comes from that group. That's to me is leadership from the O line.
Not all of that is going to show up on tape, I assume. I mean, there's other stuff that you have to do to vet them. And how did you go about vetting those?
Just besides watching the tape, talking to other coaches or other players who know them as well, and then just how they carry and conduct themselves, and just getting a little information that way. I mean, the football circles are pretty tight. There's that 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon in NFL or football. It's really 1 degree. I mean, I know a guy who you also know really well, and it's you're one guy removed from getting to know someone really well. So it's easy from a coaching standpoint, from a player standpoint. It's amazing how tight the fraternity is in football. It's amazing that way.
Coach, in the session here, they both of them seemed alert, aware, engaged, all that kind of stuff. Is that what you see from them? Is that how they play football?
Absolutely, great awareness. It jumps out on tape that they love ball. I mean, Karras is the son of a coach. He's got a pretty famous great uncle, So yeah, they're. I mean, you can just see it in their play. I mean, they're already hitting me up for playbook and scheme. I was talking a little protection this morning with Cappa last night, or on the phone actually. When I know we got Karras, he's already hit me up and about terminology and what's your tenets in the room. How do you like? What's your philosophy? And I mean, they're all in. It's exciting to see players that love ball like that.
Coach, when you get a guy who played for Skarnecchia, I would imagine you get have to like him. He's got a great reputation. I would imagine that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I mentioned this. I think with talking with Lap the other day that I'm excited just to sit down and pull from him. What are some things, unique things that Coach Skarnecchia taught him? Maybe there's something out there that I can definitely learn through Skarnecchia, through him. You can always learn as a coach things from players, and that's some of the stuff that I'm always looking to glean from other guys that have been in other systems. Maybe it's a different way to communicate or paint something or reach a player. Maybe it's a different way of doing a drill. Maybe it's a new term that just resonates with players more at this day and age. But all for sure.
When you, when you saw Karras on tape playing center, what struck
His footwork, really, to be honest with you, jumped out at me at first. I was impressed with how efficient and clean his footwork is, and he's good at IDing and communicating, and then doing my background checks from there. He's really good at that stuff and loves that stuff. He's excited about being able to do that a lot, and then how productive he was, and not just at one position, but he's a true position flex guy where he's been productive at all three spots on the inside. Not a center that can get you out of game at guard, or a guard that can be an emergency center, but a starter at all three spots on the inside and been productive in the NFL. That's pretty impressive.
If these guys, that interior, can be as good as you're hoping to be when they sign, how big of a boost can this be for this offense, and what do you think that'll unlock that maybe y'all didn't have before?
Sure, it's always going to be huge. I mean, just being firm in the middle of the pocket so the quarterback can step up and make throws, and that's line one. So you always want to be firm in the pocket from the inside out, and it starts with the interior three. So that's going to be, I mean, it's tremendous. Probably a great question to ask Joe Burrow himself. You know, I'm sure he's got an opinion on that as well.
Well, how much did you guys talk to him as you guys were going through the free agent process and seeing what kind of guys he wanted on the line? I mean, what were the conversations like as y'all went through this?
That's probably a better question for Zach or the Coach Callahan or Coach Pitcher. That's been a little bit more time talking with him. My interaction with him has really been on maybe either selling the Bengals and what we got going on here, or celebrating. In that case, like last night with the guys who were already here, and him getting to meet them for the first time. So.
Speaking of celebrating, what was your first reaction on Monday when you found out that you were going to be able to get both of these guys?
Well, I was on the road working out some draft guy stuff, but I was extremely excited. I mean, they were really, really high on our go after list, and I was excited to see that we were able to get that done and get it done so quickly. You know, which is another thing. It's kind of like my wife would probably smack me by saying this, but it's almost like the expectant father pacing the hallway. And the wife's going to deliver her kids. Like we're going to get a couple new guys. I'm excited. I can't wait to come here. But it's good to get that done and over with, and not have that linger on. For that long process. So that was exciting for me.
The football IQ of these guys seems pretty high too. And I've been around guys that can't unlearn and relearn terminology, even coming from one team to another, or a new coach comes in and they struggle with a new scheme and new terminology. These guys are pretty sharp that way, I'd imagine.
Yeah, very sharp. I mean, especially, both of them, but Karras, his dad being a longtime coach, he's been exposed to all that at such an early age. And then it's always unique. The more systems you've been in, I like to refer to it as being, bilingual, multilingual, and speaking different languages. It's like right now they speak Italian, we speak French here, however you want to phrase that. We both want to order a pepperoni pizza. We know what it looks like. It's just they call it a little bit different. So and then when you really get into some of the nitty gritty of some of the terms, that's really standard across the league, but not every place really defines that term maybe the same as another place. Then you got to dig in on all the adjustments off that term. Does it really mean what you think it is if this shows up? Then you kind of flush that out. So it's interesting. I kind of enjoy that part of the business or the process when you get new guys and you learn a little bit more. But those guys are very bright, and just talking with them the little bit of time that I've had, you could tell that they can get into the 300 and 400 level depth, if you will, of class on some of those topics. Okay, these guys got a really deep understanding of it's always the issues. There's no perfect call. There's no perfect scheme. The defense can always come up with something that's going to make you have an adjustment. And the more those problems, the better off you can figure out how to solve it. It's like it's a little bit like math. If you know the proper formulas to apply to this problem, you can do a lot. And then especially when they're the ones out there playing. So that's a lot about coaching, is being able to have them understand how to apply the correct formula to solve the problem. If that makes any sense. But.
Between the Super Bowl and the start of the free agency period, Frank,
Yeah.
Did Duke and the scouts essentially say to you, okay, these guys we kind of like,
Yeah.
now will you look at the tape and
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts?
Yeah, those guys do a great job. Obviously, for all the right reasons, our season was a little longer, and so we were kind of behind on those other areas, for lack of a better term. But those guys did a great job going through that first layer of analysis, knowing what we're looking for, and saying, hey, these are the guys that you should look at and rank and see where you come out on these guys. And they kind of tee it up where we're not having to search high and low. They already kind of did all the heavy lifting and saying, hey, these are the guys that are going to make the first cut. And then let's go through this list where we're not having to waste our time. It's not a waste of time, but just spending too much time that we don't have available to us to get to a tighter list. They provided that. They did a tremendous job. It really, hats off to the ownership, Duke and his team, really going through this process like they did and being able to get it done so quickly. And in my opinion, of course, I'm biased, but to the success, the level that we did it. So, and I know they're still going. We're not done from a global overall team standpoint at all. And that's That's pretty cool. It's neat. It helped me out to make myself a little bit more efficient and be more value add in the overall process where I fit in the whole deal.
Did you feel like because you've been here now a year, and obviously you were here back in 2018, but the scouting staff and Duke and his staff were able to identify players that fit more of what your style is, as opposed to last year when you were just coming in and you were reinstalling what you were trying to do, especially in the run game?
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely, because of familiarity there with that. Absolutely, absolutely. So we're kind of over that initial. Okay, tell us, explain to us, show us somehow what exactly that you're looking for, this and that. So absolutely, absolutely.
What's the biggest challenge when you've got multiple guys coming in that are new, that are
Mm-hmm.
starting offensive line? What's the biggest challenge in making sure that you're getting them ready throughout the offseason so they're ready for week one?
The biggest thing is terminology. Like I said, just learning the language, especially the veteran guys. Like I mentioned before, the analogy that I stole from another old time coach. So I don't want to take credit for it, but that was brilliant analysis. That it's or a comparison or saying that they speak French, you speak Italian. You guys know what you want, how to order pepperoni pizza. Just learning each other's language, and then it's really getting up the pace and flushing out that language, making sure it is the same. Like I said, there's so many words in football that teams use that they don't really mean the same. They like this 5 teams might say, yeah, that's exactly how we say it and mean it, and that's how we define it. These 3 other teams over here use the same word, and it's very similar, but it's got some big distinct differences. That if this happens, that really it's not what it means anymore. The adjustments don't come off that way. So I mean, just to be really generic, the word jet protection. Okay, when I played in the West Coast system was very early. Jet protection was a 6-man slide protection. The back had a dual read. You were sliding to either the Will or to the Sam. The back had Mike Sam or Mike Will. That is evolved and it's changed, but it's changed and evolved differently as different coaches have gone on and kind of built and changed and tweaked their system of protection within that West Coast system and how they want to either teach and train the quarterback and how does the back fit into it and how you pick up and handle certain pressures. And now it's morphed into, it's not really a slide protection. It's got a little sort protection to it, which is really comes from more of a digit family system of offense. So it's morphed and evolved into so many different things. Where when I was in Houston coaching, now not playing, it was modified a little bit how we handled 4 week and where the back fits into. When I got to Dallas, we used jet very little, but then it was still not quite the same as it was in Houston. But we more similar to as a player, but we re-ID'd things and the back would scan across differently. And then to now it's an entire blend of all the above, which is pretty cool and unique if you think about it. But so it's evolved. It's just like technology evolves football and schematics. As the defense gets more exotic, the offense gets more exotic. You're just constantly adjusting to the adjustment. And it's how you teach. And like I was telling these guys today, as we kind of just talking about some initial terminology that maybe they've heard that familiar over the course of their careers, is that protection line one always starts with the quarterback. How do you want to teach and train your quarterback? I don't care what you choose to do, what scheme you do, it all starts with him. Do you want to have him be a big side adjust guy? Do you want to have your hots built in? Do you want him to do more of that? Do you want to do less of that? I mean, it all starts with him. He got the ball in his hand. So it all stems from that. So I guess you can say I'm kind of geeking out a little bit or nerding out on O-line playing football stuff, but that's kind of cool. It's unique. It's interesting to me on that kind of stuff. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, first off, I feel like it must be said. That might be one of the most detailed answers to a question I've ever gotten. So thank you for that. That was actually incredibly insightful. And I guess that goes back to kind of to carry on your last train of thought there.
Yeah.
Does it go back to how good your quarterback is? And basically, you need to have a quarterback who can.
Oh, absolutely.
Things to make sure that you can maximize what you want to do.
Absolutely. I've been fortunate enough as a player and a coach to be exposed to all these variety of protection nuances and schemes, and they're not all the same, and they are not made for all quarterbacks. So not every quarterback can handle that. Good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, that's just who they are, and they've got whatever their skill set is to get in the league. And then we're very fortunate that we've got a quarterback that can handle all of it, and which is really fun to be a part of. And so it's cool. But definitely, it's just like everything. You got to do what your players can do best. I mean, that's your job as a coach, and then and when you have a guy who can do a lot more, then you can do a lot more. It's not about what the coaches can dream up and draw and go on the chalkboard. It's about what the Johnnies and Joes can execute and perform. I know.
Go ahead. Along those lines, how much has it gotten harder to keep things simple as everything else gets more exotic? As a teacher, as a line
Right.
coach,
That
those guys,
is the art of coaching right there.
Has that gotten harder now in today's game, though?
Yeah, it's gotten. I don't know if harder is the right word. It's just maybe gotten different. It's harder is a relative term. It was hard back in 1950, right, when things were getting evolving and changing, just like it is now. I mean, players are a lot bigger, stronger, faster. Is it harder? It's all relative, you know. But that's like the art of coaching. That's your job. That's why I was saying I love to pick Karras' brain about Scarnecchia, because I can get something new on how he maybe phrased something, how he viewed this. He would teach it this way because he thought, oh, okay, I love stuff like that. It's like Coach McNally is a great mentor of mine, and I still talk with him all the time, and that's why I love having him still. He watches practice, and he'll throw things at me because he's constantly making me think along those lines. It's fantastic. So it's, you got to always be thinking in those terms, in my opinion. You have to.
I think Cappa was the first free agent announced on Monday. Between age, skill level, fit, everything else, was he kind of the number one target for the Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get in here and say who was number one and who was eighth on the list. I mean, you really just kind of like these. You just, because of the cap, and then we're just one of 32 teams, right? So some of their teams you were on are trying to get them to stay amongst all these other teams are trying to get them. So it's like you got to go in. It's this block. These are the guys we got to go after. This is like the upper tier. This is the next tier. I mean, I've even read articles that you guys view it the same way. It's just like the top tier of this first wave, the second wave of free agency. I've heard that phrase before, but both those guys were clearly up there for us to go after right away. And, you don't want to be left without anything, right? I mean, we knew we needed to do something. So both those guys were high on that upper quadrant.
You've got a right guy, you've got a center.
Yeah.
What happens at left guard? Do you put Jackson over there to see if he can do it? How do you envision that playing out?
Well, the good news is I got some time before our first game, and so that's I think there's still a lot of things in motion. So it's kind of hard to say this is how it's going to go. It's another thing you got to be flexible. But Jackson's definitely a guy competing for that spot. There's no question about it. I mean, that's why he was brought here. His learning curve and growth that he showed last year definitely puts him in a position to be a guy that's going to be competing for it.
Do you think he's more natural on the left side? Do you think he's more natural on the left side?
I think he's more natural because he played his college career on the left side, but he was getting more comfortable as the season went on being on the right as well.
Along those same lines, are you hopeful about maybe adding more guys to the competition, and not necessarily at guard, just in general?
Yeah, you always want to add more guys to the competition. I mean, the more the merrier, and competition brings out the best of everybody. I want guys fighting, scratching, and clawing to have a mindset of to making the active roster, and then starting. You can compete. Anyone who's comes into the building thinking they've made it and arrived and I'm good, that's never a good thing in this profession. Even the I've been able to coach some good ones, and they always kind of had that mindset. You've got to get to a point where it's got to be internal competition where I'm driving myself I can't, get a step behind. And to me, that's the secret to guys having success and playing at a high level in this league. So competition's a great thing, and the more the better.
Have you gotten a sense that Jackson knows this is an important offseason for him? In talking
Oh,
about
absolutely. There's no question about that. I know he's doing some things from a training. I don't want to get too far in his personal stuff. He can tell you about all what he's doing, but I know he's invested in himself on his approach to this offseason, and I was proud of him, some of the choices he's making to better himself as a professional in that area. So that's good.
How far into the tape did you go for Alex? Did you go all the way back to his first season with the Bucks before then?
No, I just watched this last year. I like to watch the more recent stuff. I mean, I went back a couple years with Karras because his center play. I wanted to watch the stuff when last time he played center when he was in Miami. It was the most recent stuff, and then but for Cappa, just watching games from this year. That's all I need to see.
How much easier do these guys make your job?
Shoot, good players always make your job easier. At the end of the day, it's always about the players. It's always about the Johnnies and Joes. The analogy I like to use in my room is I'm just the bus driver. I'm driving the bus. I got a map. I'm making sure we're going in the right direction, but the bus does not move 1 inch if we don't have a quality engine and 4 sets of wheels. And the players are the engine and the wheels, and they make it all go. And that's just my view on the O-line, and really that's how I believe the whole football team's that way. And it's all about the players. It's my job is to remove all the barriers for them to do their job, make them play free and fast and physical, and then and let them go and make sure we're going in the right direction.
What's your favorite challenge to make a proficient pass protector a better run blocker, or make a proficient run blocker a better pass protector? Which is more of a challenge?
I think the run blocker into a more proficient pass blocker is the bigger challenge. It requires maybe a little bit more innate skills that mom and dad gave them per se, and then you can fine tune some things. I think